Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Okay, hello, Jenn Harper, founder and CEO of Cheekbone Beauty. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Thank you. I am really excited. I need a cup of joy, so this is perfect for me.
Good timing because I could use one too. I'm just so excited to have you here. I have been someone that has looked up to you for quite a while now, ever since trying. I think my first cheekbone beauty product I tried was a lip liner, and I was like, this is incredible. And I learned more about your business. So I'm so excited to share that with other people today and to dive into that. So, what one of the things that really has made me become a lover of cheekbone beauty is your story and how it has come to be. So, um, like the good that you're doing in the world, all that you represent. I want to start with talking a little bit about how cheekbone beauty came to be for those of you who are listening that don't know, I think the word manifestation intrigues people so much and they hear it and they think about it and they talk about it. But you are like a real life example of turning your dreams into a reality. And it's incredibly inspirational, even just reading about it. So maybe you can share with us a little bit about that and how Cheekbone Beauty came to be.
Yeah, and I'm gonna preface this because I think I have a responsibility to always say that it is possible to do this, but it's like just so it's clear, like the hard work is real, like
Totally.
lots of sleepless nights, enormous amount of stress, and it only gets bigger as things grow. And I just like being real with people like
Mm.
that. Yeah, this came from a dream and look where we are now and it seems all fluffy, but lots of bumps along the way, and the bumps get bigger as the brand gets bigger and your circles get bigger. It becomes like literally just a numbers game sometimes, and
Mm.
but it is so true, and I am like in the depths of my body. I believe that we have the ability as human beings, one, but you gotta believe it. Like, you have to actually really believe it. It's not like you can lie to yourself. You have to believe that anything is possible. And
Mm.
I think the story of Cheekbone really does prove that, like you said, because this is insane. I was selling fish, seafood. That was my day job, like
No
my nine
way.
to five sales rep for a seafood company. Prior to that, I was in broadline distribution food sales and then
Hmm.
the hospitality side of the food world for like 10 years. And so my
Wow.
whole career was in the food world. I had no experience, and I literally say I probably have no business being here in the beauty industry because I didn't know anything. Like, I literally knew nothing. So back in 2015, I have this like literal pop out of bed, middle of the night dream. All I remember from a dream, and dreams are always like spotty, right? So you wake
Mhm.
up and you're like, what was it? So three native little girls, like covered in lip gloss, and they had the rosiest little cheeks, and they were giggling and laughing because they had made such a mess of themselves. Like, that's what
Oh.
I remembered. But at the same time in my life, like so many things were happening. One, I was learning about the residential school system in Canada, so I'm a 38-year-old woman when I have that dream. And I'm also just learning, like many Canadians were and many
Mhm.
Americans, about this whole boarding residential school system that happened, which was really led to what we now know as generational or transgenerational trauma,
Mhm.
and the beginning of so many negative impacts on First Nations, Métis, Inuit people, Native Americans across North America, and how the culture being robbed and removed from us as people way back when really has played out in such a negative way. And so I was learning that that was true, that that existed. That was the year the TRC, and it was this report called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and it was a final report, and it had just been released. So that January that I had that dream, I literally just started reading that,
Wow.
and it was so like evident. Like I had no idea. It's amazing how much I didn't know that. Like even our like past prime ministers, presidents throughout the United States, you can read quotes of like how and what they thought of Native people, and it wasn't very pleasant. And so recognized that this was a systematic thing, but then I also was like, okay, so now I know this, and then I was learning that my grandmother survived this residential school system.
Wow.
Like she lived through it. We've now since learned that many children died in those systems, but my grandmother then went on to have 8 kids, my father being one
Wow.
of the children, and just the trauma that he had to grow up in. Because when you are she was there for 10 years, so taken from our family at 6 years old, didn't return back to her community till she was 16, and so you can imagine the damage that would do to a young person, and so that trauma was essentially passed on to me and my siblings, and
Mhm.
I got sober 2 months before having that dream. So when you think about the trauma, addiction, alcoholism are like band-aid portions of what trauma can look like,
Yeah.
and how it plays out for some of us. And so I finally was at a point in my life where I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Like it was almost like a relief, like I knew why I had so many struggles now. And
Mm.
then now because I knew why, I could literally go and be like, fix it essentially. Like, okay, I know this is why this happened. Maybe
Mhm.
none of it makes sense. None of it's fair. You've learned as you mature as an adult, life isn't
Yeah.
fair in so many ways. And I thought, what could I do? And after having that dream, I'm like, well, I could create a product. So at the time, it was just this idea of a lip gloss. And I wanted to use a portion of the profits to do something to support my Indigenous community. And the whole initial concept was like, let's focus on education. Because I really, truly believe that, an educated person just has the ability to do so many things. And when I say
Mhm.
education, this is a blanket statement, meaning not maybe even the secular version that we see and the systems that are set up. What about land-based education or
Yeah.
education in different fields where it's like trades and skills and all those things? Maybe not just like this academia version of education either, but education in itself is super powerful and
Yeah.
can change lives, and we've seen that. And so that was the whole concept of like doing that. And I was really a huge fan of like Tom Shoes, which was like this one
Yeah.
for one concept, or
Mhm.
Patagonia, and they use this term called like a social enterprise. And so I knew this existed, and then learning about the beauty industry and how the margins are so much better than the food industry that I was in. I was like, "Oh, there is room if you built something that you could make a profitable business and still using those profits could be used to give back and do good in the world." And that was literally the beginning concepts. And like fast forward to where we are today, it's been quite a wild ride. We're in um, 609 JC Penney locations in the United States, and we're
Wild.
in 65 Sephora Canada locations, and
Incredible.
big aspirations still to grow more for sure.
Yeah, and I see it happening. Like, I feel like I have watched your brand grow over the past maybe like 4 or 5 years, and I'm like, it's so inspirational. It's so neat to see what you're doing, but the thing that draws me to your company is the good that you're doing. And so when you describe, having this dream and then wanting to create this lip gloss and immediately having that piece of, "Oh, I want part of this to do good in the world." Where do you think that comes from? Because not everybody has that. Most people see a business opportunity and they go, "Look how much money we could make. Look at the profit margins, they're great. Here we're going to make more." Not, "Here we can do more." So where does that come from?
I I I don't know. I'm like, I feel like it is probably cultural, but it's also being a woman. I feel
Mm.
like women are always just community driven.
Yeah.
And my mom has always been about community growing up. So it's just like the examples you have. And I got to a point in my life, and probably it was a big part of like my healing journey with addiction and
Mm,
realizing what really made me happy and what success felt and looked like. And
mm,
so literally from learning about my Indigenous roots, like an Anishinaabe version, and that's like it just means the people from my like Ojibwe tribe. Um, they believe in this concept of success as really meaning what you do for your community. Like that's what where success comes from if you're indigenous, not like what you're attaining for yourself. And I was
Mhm.
watching the world at the time and I was like, it's always like these flashy entrepreneurs with like Lamborghinis and don't get me wrong, like of course who
Cool.
does
Yeah.
not admire a Ferrari that's, went on the tour in Italy with my husband. He's a huge Ferrari fan. So like the car is handmade, like it's beautiful, right? Of course
Yeah.
those things are lovely, but it's like what really matters and what is really important. And I had no idea even if it was going to work. I was like, maybe
Mhm.
business isn't like this because it can't work. And we're still in this space where we're like trying to figure out like it's working, we're growing, but I think as and other entrepreneurs will appreciate this. It's like you never know if it's fully done or fixed or ready. And I don't think anything is. I think everything in life is constantly evolving and growing.
Yeah.
So we're still in this space where like, will this work? Will this actually be something super special? And again, that admiration for an organization like Patagonia, they've proven that it can work. And so I think it's just about finding the right distribution partners, the right amount of community support, like
Mhm.
all of those things. Yeah, they really do make it a big part of if something is going to be successful. But I just believed too at that point in my life that I was like, I mean, I have enough, like those
Mhm.
are things like when people start businesses, you're right. A lot of times it is about I think the capital gains, but I was like, I have a good home. I can get to work. I have a family. And this idea of contentment
Mm.
has really played with my life in so many ways because I don't think pre-addiction I was ever content,
Huh.
like sorry, not pre-addiction but pre recovery.
Okay.
Right, like I
Yeah.
always felt like you had to be driving and striving for more, and that can be exhausting and damaging to us. So
Totally.
this idea of like you can be content but also still be working hard on yourself and the things that you do in life, but contentment needs to be there. And it's
Mhm.
it's this tough balance. It even I think it really plays a part in this whole concept or conversation surrounding like work life balance, like when is enough. And it's just understanding that contentment is a healthy and okay feeling to be
Mhm.
like, okay, like now at the end of the day, the laptop is closed. And I'm like, okay, I am content with what I've accomplished today. Whereas, early years of building Cheekbone, still in recovery, in the early days of recovery, maybe I would work way too late into the
Yeah.
evening. And that's not being content or satisfied with what you've accomplished in a healthy amount of time.
That's so interesting to me. And I think as a CEO and like a leader of a company, especially in the early days when you're like finding the company, really putting in that time, like you're saying, I think it can be really hard to separate life with business and to separate like,
Mhm.
okay, this is my role in my business, but this is my role at home. And I think when you were talking about um how in Indigenous culture, community is the driving force. I was on your website and there is a quote that says, in Indigenous culture, success is not defined by one person's accomplishments, but by what a person does for their community. And so you've kind of answered what that quote really does for your business, but how does that lead you in your personal life too?
Yeah. So I think my personal life, it's about like I've always just recognized that you feel better doing things for
Mhm.
others. And even, it's as simple as like we live in such a tough world and we have no idea what people are going through. And I've recognized with maturity, sometimes even just smiling at someone. Like, and in Toronto, this is not easy. People might look
No.
at you like you're
Who's
crazy.
that weirdo?
Yeah. But it's so fascinating when you do get a smile or a little flick of the lip back up at you, and we just don't know, we have no idea what everyone's going through. And it's I think as simple as that in my mind about giving back, like,
Mhm.
and now especially with Cheekbone, I've had a lot of opportunities for mentorship, and so
Mm.
making time for stuff like that, it's a lot of effort, and I really think it's important. And whenever an Indigenous youth reaches out in particular, my team is always like, you can't do this, Jen, you don't have time, right?
Yeah.
But they know. And if it was like, and because I'm putting myself in their shoes. What if that was me when I was
Mhm.
that young and had a question and wanted 20, 30 minutes of someone's time? Like, I'm going to do it because, yeah, regardless of how busy I am, I will. And then that pushes into your personal life too sometimes, but
Totally.
we do it. Yeah.
I think that's incredible, and the impact that even little things like you're saying, like a smile can have on people is so tremendous, and we sometimes forget that. We sometimes
Hmm.
think like, "Oh, in order for me to give back, like I have to take half a day off of my job or away from my family." Like that's not the truth. It can be little things that really impact other people's days that then in turn impacts you. And
Yes.
because we are a selfish society and an individualistic society, I think it's so neat for people to learn that giving feels good for
It
yourself. So
does.
it can be a selfish thing. Even though it is giving to others, it really can impact us tremendously, and it
There
can
is
be super simple.
science around this that like if you our feel good hormones are like set off because when we do something good for someone else, like this is like how we were made. We were designed to be givers because it actually is good for our mental health. And also when our mental health is good, then our physical health is good. It's
Mhm.
proven like stress is actually really bad for your mental health, which then in turn becomes bad for your physical health. So these are things that we're just like we're supposed to be this way. And
Mhm.
when you do it, it is life changing.
Yeah,
Really
and
is.
it's
Yeah.
contagious too, and I think that's why
Yeah.
it's so incredible when people can share. Sometimes it feels a little nerve-wracking to share, like, giving back or doing good because it's like, "Oh, I don't wanna brag about things that are just close to my heart," but I think, like, your business especially does such a good job of showcasing the good that they're doing without necessarily, like, bragging, like, it doesn't come off in that way in any regard, but I think
Oh,
it does
thank you.
inspire people to do good and to give back too.
Yeah, I hope so. It's funny, I never even looked at it that way.
Yeah,
But you're right. It's so funny that we're so cognizant of like, I never want to appear like we're bragging or even doing like the humble brag. Like
yeah,
it's so hard sometimes. And it's interesting being in this space now. Like that has been the foundation and the focus of Cheekbone from the beginning. Like
mhm,
this wasn't an add-on or an afterthought. And it's interesting because like you see people have come along and they're like, why do you think it's successful? And then I have shared, I believe it is because of our giving back, right? Like I really think people are attracted and drawn to that. And
mhm.
then so for a time you can really see how people are adding it into their business. But there's something really interesting. I think intention is so critical because we can't, like, again, we can't fake these things, like
No, you
even
can't.
like to ourselves sometimes. So you just got to be so careful of like, and let's be real. I have a lot of Indigenous friends in business, and some of them are like, "No, I'm here to make money and have a business." And I'm like, "That is amazing, good." And we should never judge that. That's I just had different reasons for doing this a different way, right?
Mhm,
Like it's yeah, Cheekbone story is really intertwined with my personal life and my path and my road to recovery and learning about the support that our community does need in so many ways, in particular with education. And so
mhm.
I had different reasons for doing it. But if that's not on your path, like don't think it has to be. But
Yeah,
what I do love is some great conversations. Like there is other ways to give back, like you just mentioned. It doesn't have to be like the one friend in particular that has another Indigenous business and then another non-Indigenous friend that has a business as well. They'll like add in like special events that they want to do where
totally.
they're giving of literally their time and efforts to build things that support something that they care about, right?
Mhm.
And it's not even like it doesn't even look like a give back, which I'm like, that's who you are and that's
Yeah,
amazing, like do it that way. And that's it's got to be important that you understand who you are and why you're doing it, and you can't just do a give back because we think it's trendy or other
totally.
people have had success with it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, like, sometimes it's like, "Oh, on trend, so we should do this," but I think people can tell when it comes from your heart versus when it's like a business move or decision, and sometimes those can align, but I think it starts with your values. I'm, like, very into value-based decision making and
Mm,
value-based thinking. This year, it's been, like, something that's just so top of mind for me and that I'm reflecting on every day when I'm making decisions, whether it's in my business or
I
with my
love that.
kids or anything. It's like so front of mind. And once you really like start to think about it, I think it can impact. your decisions too. Like, why am I making this decision? Does it align with my values and who I am? And it just
Mm.
resonates with me, what you're saying. And when I was looking at your website too, I was reading that Cheekbone I came upon you highlighting the 7 grandfather teachings of the Ojibwe
Mhm.
culture.
Yeah.
And I was so inspired by it. I loved all of the bullet points you had underneath of describing it because I felt like I had a lot to learn in that sense. But you highlighted that, in your product development and values, and the one that stood out tremendously to me because it is one of my values also, is love. And so how does love impact your business decisions, and how do you continue to keep that front of mind? Because I think in a business like the beauty industry, it can be easy to push your values aside and just make business decisions and not value-based decisions.
Mhm.
So how do you do that?
Yeah. So love is like definitely the guiding principle and system that we live by at Cheekbone Beauty. And it really all started with the reason, when I discovered the 7 grandfather teachings, I was like, oh, these are just like literal excellent values and principles to live by,
Totally.
right?
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, I'm building something and I can decide what all companies, they have their mission, value, core value
Core
statements.
values.
And I'm like, we get to do that when you're building your own business. And so then we definitely took those and chose those to build our core values out with. Love is the most important one, in my opinion. Our whole team has different, like, we all have our favorites. I just believed from this love, and it was a real principled love, like based on principle, not on what's like, I guess, that romantic version of love that we get confused with, because love is principled. Love
Mhm.
is an action word. You have to actually show it, you have to do something. An action is required. And so when I think about love and I think about the reason why Cheekbone Beauty exists, I think about like every Indigenous little kid, like
Mhm.
whether it's those 3 little girls in that dream or all of the kids that in my mind I see like just running around, and really then going back to myself as a little kid and what was missing. And this whole idea of seeing myself is what I felt to be missing. And me building this, was this act of love for my community essentially. And then when we build products or we develop products, when we engage with our customer, when we engage on social media, we are going to do everything from this place of principled love. And so, whether that's choosing an ingredient that we know is more expensive but will leave less of an impact on the planet,
Mhm.
that's love, right? And
Agreed.
and knowing that we're choosing to now not work with partners that can't prove, um, and not even, no, not anymore. We've gone so deep this year that not even can we not work where we're not just talking about raw ingredient formulation. I'm not choosing to just have like even our boxes made cheaper in a foreign land, because and not knowing what human's going to be actually impacted by that supply chain, because in many cases there's a lot of unethical people practices, and that's why you
Mhm.
can get a box for 20 cents
Yeah.
versus maybe paying $1 to have it done here in Canada, and knowing the partners that make the box and knowing that they can then tell us and prove where the paper comes from, and that it is an FSC, for instance, certified paper that's not negatively impacting forests, that it's protected, and that there's someone managing sustainable practices when it comes to making paper. So it's just all of those decisions, and like whether it's a cost, and which was really critical though was us making sure our investors aligned with our values. And that was,
Totally.
we got really really lucky in the early days of meeting our investment partners, because they are also indigenous led and based,
Oh.
from Vancouver, Canada, Raven Capital. And they really believed in this mission, and their whole purpose was to invest on businesses based on social impact.
Mm.
So obviously, like I always call our meeting and our relationship serendipitous, because
Yeah.
you know where on earth, like I've heard like when I read now up and I'm thinking about the next kind of jump of funding that we'll need, and if Raven ever wants to exit, like, who are we gonna have to work with? I'm very scared. I'll the
Yeah.
honest truth is because everyone is more concerned, about stakeholder shares than the planet in most cases, and that
Mhm.
is heartbreaking and unfortunate. And so, um, there are some new social impact investors coming out in the space as well, which is exciting. So hopefully the future for us is with someone that we align with. And that's, I know that's a tough conversation. We're not there yet. So I'm like, don't worry about things you don't need to be worrying about yet. But that is, it's really important that your investors aligned with our value system, and they
Mhm.
did. And so uh, we are just so fortunate that those things have worked out for us,
Yeah,
because
and it
there's tough decisions to be made.
very, very, especially when you're having growth, which you guys have had tremendous growth over the years. And I think what's really impactful of that, of you talking about like the distribution, the creation, even just boxes, but also your investors, is that every single step is led in love, which is
Hmm.
so impactful. Cause sometimes people will say, like, oh, yeah, like love is one of our values that led us to a portion of the donate of profits goes to donors. And then like that's kind of it, which is great. Like that is still
Yeah.
better than nothing, but I think it's really impactful that every single decision that you're making is truly led with love.
Yeah. And I think something that I've learned too is like, how much do I love myself?
Mm.
As the leader, right?
Mhm.
And that comes back to, again, showing the team that, okay, you're not getting emails all night long,
Yeah.
because I love and respect you for real. And that's not just a core value on our wall, it's real, right?
To like so very
Yeah.
real, but it's so hard. I was reading in some leadership book. I forget what book it was just this week, but it said like you have to lead by example because if you are leading and you're telling people do this, but you're not participating in that,
Hmm.
what type of respect are you having in return? And are people going to do that? Not happily, but if you're modeling that for them and you are doing what you're asking them, they are going to continue because they're going to look up to you. But it's difficult, living what you're preaching is sometimes hard, but when it does come back to love, it's a benefit on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we are all happier when we align with our value systems. We just are like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's that simple.
totally. And I think it's incredible that you're talking about how socially responsible you are, also how sustainable you are as a company, and also being a successful business. And it can obviously be very, very demanding. So, how do you prioritize self care, which I think kind of ties into this value of love with your busy, busy schedule, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm like a first thing in the morning, I do
Mm.
like that I have to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I remember in the early days of building Cheekbone, hearing someone say that you have to be working harder on yourself than you do on your business every day.
Huh.
And that really stuck with me. I think it was like, and it's weird. It's like Dale Carnegie or Napoleon Hill or some, one of those old school business writers that happen
Yeah.
to be male. But I was like, okay, no, I get that. That's really good advice. And so I do my like morning routine, which is always involves first prayer and then like physical movement and fitness, and really like taking that first hour of my day to like think deeply about the intentions of all the things I need to
Hmm.
accomplish, so that when I come to that time where I'm okay, like I'm signing off, that you're good with everything you've accomplished in that one day. But for sure, that's like my daily routine. It's like all of those things first, and then, like, if possible, that's always out in nature. um
I love that.
yeah, like it's always outside.
Which also is proven to help improve
Yes.
mood and in
Yeah.
turn productivity, which
Yeah.
is so funny because I tell myself that, but sometimes actually having the motivation to do that can be difficult,
Yeah.
especially when you're busy. So it's incredible to hear that you do prioritize that. And I think it shows in the productivity and in what you're doing.
Yeah, I
So
just, the moment you get out and you're like amongst trees, it's like
yeah,
you're like, oh, I just needed that. Yeah.
you can breathe.
So
Yeah.
good.
I'm kind of like that with water too. Like I find
Mm.
if I'm ever around water, I'm just like so at peace. So
Hmm.
yeah. That's incredible. Um, I thought this was very good timing. When I was scrolling the gram the other day, I saw Cheekbone on your account. There was a self-care gift set that Cheekbone had curated. And I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, as if Jen's coming on the podcast this week, and I just saw this, like, so cool,
Yeah.
because the whole reason I started this podcast was to really, inspire people to prioritize self-care and to kind of, like, debunk the myth that self-care is selfish. Sometimes we
Yes.
think that doing that is, "Oh, you only care about yourself," but I think when you are taking care of yourself, you can show up as a much better version of yourself in all areas of life, relationships, friendships, work, like really anywhere.
Mhm.
And so why was it important to you to create this self-care bundle, and how did that like inspiration kind of come to be?
Yeah, we're in alignment for sure because I really am like, how do we teach more people about wellness and
Mhm.
self-care? And that, like, this, in order to have a better life, it's like you have to figure that stuff out. Like, there's no
Totally.
question there. Like, that is an absolute must. And so the team, we got together, and then it was also another avenue for us to share the seven grandfather teachings, because
Ah.
it's almost like the holiday calendars where you're popping open and getting a surprise.
Oh,
And we
like an
did it.
advent calendar. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've done it for 7 and then you'll get
Oh,
the there's the surprise of the teaching, and then 7 of our top bestsellers are in the box. So it's
that is
really,
so cool.
yeah, and we partnered with, so one of the mentees that I work with from British Columbia is makes candles. It's called Roshni Wellness is their brand, and
Hmm.
we are doing this thing together where she was teaching me about candle making and how sustainable and how the candle industry is not necessarily sustainable or
Hmm.
safe, and learning about different ways to make candles and how it is can be safer, better for us, because I love candles. It's
Me
like
too.
bath candles. Candles are always a part of my wellness routine at home, and I just, now I was like, okay, now I want to make sure that I'm using the right safe ingredients when I'm using candle. And so she made these really cute candles in our reusable tins, that the
Oh,
cheekbone one. So
yeah.
also we're going to do a little blog on how people can make their own if they wanted to save those tins and make candles with them. They
Cool.
can totally do that. Yeah. So that was, you're getting that as a free gift with the self-care kit as well.
This episode is brought to you by Cheekbone Beauty. Cheekbone Beauty is an Indigenous owned beauty brand producing sustainable, high quality beauty products. My go to Cheekbone Beauty products are the lip liner and, of course, the eyeshadow pencils. They're my favorite. You can use code YourCupOfJoy for 20% off of Cheekbone Beauty product, excluding bundles, kits, palettes, gift cards, and perfectly imperfect products. Again, that is Your Cup of Joy to save 20% off of Cheekbone Beauty products. Enjoy. Going back to values, like, how incredible that, like, your company aligned with this person. You could share that with your community and your audience and your people. That's just so
And
incredible.
yeah, so she's a new business owner, and it's, it's through the forum, which is like a business, um I guess, a mentorship program, business program for women in Canada. And this is my second time being a mentor, and
Oh,
I've just found so much joy in this, and learning. It's really interesting. The first, two different cultures and two different backgrounds. The first mentee was from Winnipeg, of Asian descent, and this second mentee is South Asian descent and lives in British Columbia. I'm pretty sure in Kelowna. I'm like always getting Kelowna and Kamloops mixed up in
I
my
miss
head, but I'm pretty sure
Kelowna.
it's Kelowna. And her, yeah, just like, I don't know, this is so like, if I didn't have Cheekbone, I would have never had any of these opportunities to like get to know different people and learn about her family. And I was like, well, how are you doing, like, and so her family's in the agricultural industry
How
in the
cool.
Okanagan Valley.
Oh,
And because I was like, when you have big orders, like, how are, like, in my head, I know you make all of this stuff, so how are you? And so anyway, it was super cool. Her parents are in the ag industry, and then there's people people that they have, if they don't need them one day to do a project, they'll go and help make candles for the big orders and stuff that she had going. And I
Oh
was
my
like, this is
gosh.
fascinating. Like, I love that, right? Like, and it's
Yeah.
family supporting family, community supporting community,
Yeah.
providing work. And like, it's, yeah. And Nav is just such a great person, and it's been amazing to get to know her. And so, why not use our business Cheekbone to
Yeah.
uplift her business too at the same time, right? Like
That is
that's what
so
this is all
cool.
about. Yeah. And I'm always, it's so funny when someone asks you to be a mentor, like I don't feel like you just said, like I don't feel super qualified sometimes to do these things and take on these roles. And then I'm like, well, no, like, even if I always think it's important to recognize, even if you're just sharing, like, this is life. We're sharing little tidbits and gems of, okay, don't do this because I really screwed up, or
Yeah.
there, or like this really worked, and you want to share stuff like that. So, our relationship has been amazing, and I love being able to do that. It makes me feel good.
It's
Right?
so
So yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So, so amazing. And I think you're right. Like, you obviously have a lot of advice and expertise to give these people. But I think that it's true that they're huge part of that impact is just the support. Like, having somebody to talk to about their day to day, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm not like, even just talking it out. Sometimes it's not even always the advice, but it's having the space for them to almost come to the decision on their own,
Mhm.
or to just
Absolutely.
talk it out, and to not feel so alone. Because similar, I talked about this a couple podcasts ago, but I thought motherhood was going to be like this incredible, like, community focused thing. And it was like the most lonely I had ever felt in my entire life. I was like, who lied to me? Like, this is crazy.
Mhm.
And so entrepreneurship is very similar, where you feel
Yes.
like, oh, there's this big group of people who are doing this. I'm going to do it. It's going to be amazing. And then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm, like, by myself. I have nobody to ask questions to. It's competitive." Like,
Mhm.
it becomes this very scary thing if you don't have that support. So, I think that's so incredible that you can be that for people.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really lonely sometimes. And so
Mhm.
just even being able to, like you said, like rant off all the things that you're going through. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's just exactly what your body needs, is to like
To release.
just exit all that stuff. And then they're like,
Totally.
okay, I'm great. Yeah.
Yep.
And I recognize too, I'm part of Coralis, which is another, formerly CEO in Canada, which is
Oh,
like
okay.
women in business, right?
Mhm.
And I'm have a mentor right now, and yesterday our call was nothing about business. Literally, it was like what was going on in my personal life. And I was like,
Love
I
that.
literally just had like a 30-minute rant session, but I'm like just offloaded. And she was amazing. She was like, yeah, no, that's what this is sometimes, right? So
And didn't you
I was
feel
like,
lighter
yeah,
after? You're like,
totally.
"Oh,
I was
I'm
like,
good now."
this feels so good. Yeah.
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 That's incredible. I think sometimes too, it can be, like, very overwhelming to to have so many things building up. And I feel like sometimes I have to practice what I preach. I feel like lately I've been very overwhelmed. There's been like 100 things on my plate, a million things that I want to do, and never enough time. And so slowing down, especially in our society now, I think is so, so very difficult, because you feel so many outward pressures of like, this is what I should do. This is what's
Hmm.
supposed to be happening. And even like friends and family and people around us, like, we almost put these pressures from them sometimes, like, oh, I think they would want me to do this. I find
Hmm.
myself doing that often. And I know I need to practice what I preach and slow down and practice some self-care. Um, but it's just challenging. And so I'm wondering if you can share a time that maybe you had to step back and focus on your own health and well-being, and how you manage that, because especially as a CEO of a large company, like, it's hard to hold space and time for that, but I think it is very important.
Mm. Well, not to get too personal, but I am having to do that now. I just lost another brother
Oh,
um on Friday, not last Friday, the Friday before. So this is very, I'm
I'm
like, what
so
was the
sorry.
day? And yeah, it really sucks, and it's such a awful thing to, I'm the oldest, and so I was just having this moment. It was literally like a feel sorry for myself moment, a couple, like the week
Mm,
after it happened, because I'm like, who has loses two brothers, and they're both, one was in their 30s, and my brother John that just died was only 40. And
oh,
you're like, this is just so unfair. Like, it's just, and it's just so much traumatic, and it's trauma. It's family trauma, and it's like still haunting my family in so many ways. And I'm like, will this ever end? Like, what am I doing this all for?
Yeah.
And then those are the moments when I'm like, okay, what, like, literally I have to practice what I preach. And
Mhm.
the team stepped up right away. I texted Brian, my assistant, on Saturday. I said, I have to go with my mom, like, to Vancouver. This is where my brother died. He's not from there, so we have to go deal. And I've never, of course, you've never had this situation before, so you don't know what you're dealing with.
No, of course.
Everything's unknown, but just knowing that, okay, I have to be there for my mom. Like, work can wait, right? And
Yeah.
I had to. So Monday was a holiday, thank goodness. But then knowing that Tuesday was like fully gone for to take care of these things, and then Wednesday, most of it would have been a write off as well, because I wasn't coming back till later in the day. And yeah, and those are real things that happen in all of our lives, and it's so much pain. And then are having to take care of all the people. Like, my son, who's only 21, is probably the closest to my brother that died. They
Oh,
were My brother John was an electrician. He, like, has literally been teaching. He, like, groomed my son to be the he's a fourth year electrical apprentice now. And so
wow.
just also understanding how much trauma and pain this is going to cause for my kid now, right? And as a mom, those are, like, obviously the most important things that you're trying to take care of. And
Mhm.
just family is so critical. And I'm always like my husband just stepped up right away and knew
Oh,
what he had to do, and all the different family members and everyone has. And it's been amazing to see family come together, sadly, in tragedy. But these
mhm.
are the people that do that. And then seeing the Cheekbone team do the same thing, they're like, we got it, don't worry, like,
Wow.
that's it, period. Right?
Yeah.
And they did, and they we had a big thing that they still had to execute on, and it was all taken care of. And
Wow.
but just, yeah, and I just had to be like, okay, you're gonna have your time, and this is gonna be hard right now. And grief is very strange. I'm like,
Very.
you find out and it's so sad, and and then the next day I'm like, okay, he's gone, right? And then
Yeah.
you're like, it feels so weird to just go on with your life in those moments. I always think, if I'm so weird in the sense, I know I'm not weird. I know other people. It's like, how do we go on with our lives when we just lost somebody? But you have to, for
Yeah.
all the other people, right? And
Yeah.
that person, whoever you lose, would want you to,
Yeah.
right? And they want you to be, um, they would want you to be the best. Yeah, sorry.
Don't apologize at all. Thank you
Yeah,
for
and so when I
sharing
had
all
my
of that.
call with my mentor yesterday, my brother was cremated, and for some reason, I had no idea I was gonna react this way.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had anyone in my family immediately close to me that I knew that was cremated. Everyone else has been buried. And
Oh,
so I was just like, oh my goodness, I had like a flood of emotions, because I'm like, okay, I knew his body, like, he was dead, he was already gone, but like now his everything's gone, right? So I just was
yeah.
like, had an hour cry yesterday, and then my call with her was just after that, and she's like,
Oh.
we can just talk about this. This is fine. So, and she was awesome when I said the 30 minutes of me just, like, venting to her.
Mhm.
And it was perfect. It was like exactly what I needed to do in that
Wow.
moment, and just recognizing that that's okay. We're all gonna have, like, life is tough. It's really tough.
Very.
And despite having awesome things that we're working on and doing on, really sad, horrible things are going to happen along the way. And what I'm trying to teach my kids is that it doesn't always have to be this sort of and or situation.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
don't have to be sad or happy. You actually can be both at the same time.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a situation like death and losing someone, I know that that's what the person you would have lost would have wanted.
Yeah.
They don't want you to be sad forever, and they're okay even when you are. And then, but you can be both at the same time. And it took me um, a long time, I think, to learn how to do that. And I think it's something we definitely have to teach young people, because I feel like they can feel guilty for, like, moving on and being happy and doing new things. And
Yeah.
we got to teach them that that's okay, right?
I was just gonna say, like, the guilt that comes sometimes when you feel like you're supposed to be sad
Yeah.
and that you feel like you're not supposed to also have those other emotions. Like, having that duality is really important to understand that it's okay to have that.
Yeah.
And that you're right,
Yeah.
that the person that you lost wouldn't want you to be sitting in a puddle of
No.
tears all day, every day, you know? Like, it's okay
Yeah.
to hold on to that, to feel upset, but it's also okay to continue to live your life and to do things that make you happy too. And I think something to remember also, or something that I believe, because I've been really invested in learning more about self-care, I've really started to understand that self-care looks different for everybody and there are all different forms of self-care. But I
Mhm.
think holding space for your emotions is a form of self-care, especially when you're in a busy lifestyle like a CEO of a large company. Like, you are programmed sometimes by society, I think, to just continue on. Like, "Oh, no, I
Yes.
have this deadline. I have to go. Like, I don't have time to be sad." But I think what's really important is holding that space, like having that mentorship call to just let your feelings out and feel
Yeah.
that, having an hour to cry and to be okay with, okay, right now, the productive thing to do is actually to let myself feel.
Yeah.
And I think that that is a form of self care in itself.
And, you're right, it's how everyone deals with it, and then I had a coffee with another another woman founder, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know if you're gonna wanna meet," and then I'm like, "No," I'm like, "I need to be in the work, I need to be doing these work things
Yeah.
to get through it." That's how I deal with it, and
Mhm.
then showing up, we had, the Pennington's team invited us to their Cabana pool bar
Fun.
party hosted by
Yeah.
Alicia McCarville last week, and so I land in Toronto, and I'm like, "No, I'm going right to the event." I was like kept saying, "I don't know if I'm gonna come," and I'm so glad I went
Oh,
because the energy from like all these are all influencers and in the like body positivity realm, but their vibe and their energy like
mhm.
was exactly what I needed that day. Do you know what
Oh,
I like? It was
yeah.
just so good. I'm so glad I went and not just went home and be like all alone kind of thing. Like I was
Mhm.
like, I just needed this uplifting and got to chat with some of them and like hear about them and their stories and it's just yeah, sometimes we isolate and I get that that's okay
Mhm.
too at points you need to do that but I was like no for me I'm the type of person like I need to go and then it's almost opposite of my natural self. My
Hmm.
natural self would like I love alone time, right? Like
Interesting.
so when I've been grieving, I've learned that I'm obviously the type of person that likes to be around people when that sort of thing is happening because I'm just feeling better from all of their energy.
Yeah, and maybe you take on a bit of that energy too.
Mhm.
And I think it's so neat that you're sharing that too, because I know I've experienced sometimes, a few times, where I have lost somebody and felt like, oh, I don't think it's appropriate for me to go to this already scheduled event. Like, what if
Mhm.
people, know that I've lost someone and now I'm like going to do something that would maybe make me feel joy at a time that I'm not supposed to feel that way?
Right.
And it's these words like supposed to, or like what will other
Exactly.
people think, that are so silly, that if we're not
Mhm.
really reflecting and understanding like why are we feeling this way, and focusing only on ourselves. Something else I've really been intentional about thinking about is that we can only control ourselves. We can't control other people as much as we want to.
Yeah.
And so like really thinking like, who cares? If this is gonna make me feel good in this moment, it doesn't mean
Mhm.
I'm not processing the grief. It doesn't mean that I'm not sad. But the fact that you were able to push yourself to go and to be supported by that energy, to be supported by wonderful people. I know so many people that went and just was like, what an amazing group of individuals.
Mhm.
I just think that's so, so awesome. And a message for people who maybe are going through something that's very difficult, that it's okay to feel happy and feel sad at the same time.
Yeah. And just watch like, it was so strange, just watching them dance was, like, bringing me so much joy.
That's
Like, it was
incredible.
literally bringing me so much joy, yeah.
I love that.
And
That's
watching my team enjoy themselves there too,
yeah.
because they just picked up and did whatever they needed to do,
Wow.
for those few days, and, watching them have a good time and be happy just, again, added to all of those good feelings.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us too. And I'm so, so sorry that you're going
Thank
through
you.
that and then that it's just awful. Speaking about your team, I know that self-care is important to you personally, to your business, and to your consumers, the people who are purchasing your products, because you're creating these amazing products to inspire people to indulge in self-care. And so, as a CEO, as a leader, how do you encourage and promote self-care to your own team members at Cheekbone Beauty?
I think we have it as like it's part of our culture. Like we
Mm,
talk about it a lot. And it's really interesting you should ask this because our next event and launch of a product on July 24th. I'm like looking at the calendar. Yeah, it's July 24th. So it's 2 weeks
yeah.
away. Is all about healing and self care.
Ah,
And so the event is like surrounded by all of the, some of the tools that people might like to use. So we're going to have yoga, a sound bath,
ah,
and really make it this like intimate setting. But it's all about wellness and healing. And so when we talked about this, we're like, it's so funny because we're in a commercial world, we're in a commercial business, we're like selling these things. But I'm like, there's got to be a way that we can just continue to have these conversations so that people recognize that, okay, this isn't just a trend. It is, even though it is in the marketplace, it's
mhm.
actually beneficial for us. And so, whatever ways people can um, come up with their own paths on what that feels like for them. But definitely, it's as a team, it's part of our company culture, and we're constantly talking about it.
I love that, and I think it's so important and shows too, like, you even saying that your team was able to just pick up and really fill in where they needed to. I think that all is because they're charged and recharged and ready to go because you've provided them
Yeah.
space to practice self-care.
And we don't, we have a few new moms, and that's really tough role,
Mm.
right? When the kids are little, I remember
Oh,
how
yes.
challenging it was. And so, I just want them to know when their time off is off work, it's really off work, right? And
Mm.
we live in a really hustle culture here in North America. I think
Yes.
Canadians are a little bit better than our American counterparts. But we really promote like if it's off work time, then it is really off work time. Like we're not we're not we're not in emergency work essentially.
Mm.
And so it doesn't need we you don't need all access to everyone all the time. And so I really want the team to know that and live by that. And I see them, they do, like they take their, yeah, you need that
That's
time
amazing.
off that you don't have to worry about what's happening. You're just worried about your family as you should be.
Yeah, which can also be consuming as a new mom.
Yes. I do know some of them come to work sometimes and be like, "Thank goodness I'm at work."
This is my break. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's how I feel sometimes.
yeah.
Um, and okay, so I am also very excited because Cheekbone Beauty has created this like really innovative way to package makeup, to apply makeup, to um just ever like I'm always intrigued by your like foundation sticks, like how there's not
Mm.
actually a foundation. I remember the first time I saw you guys I said, like, "Do you guys have foundation?" It was like a booth set up at an event, and you were like, "Yeah, these sticks." I was like, "What is that?" Like, I was shocked, and now I'm, like, really into watching the videos of people apply them. So I just love how unique it is, how you're really kind of changing that whole space and making it really what is working for you, and it's so neat to be able to do that. So your product innovation is inspiring and intriguing to me. This episode will be out after July 24th. So I'm
Ooh,
wondering if you can share with us a little bit about what is next. What is your new product? Hint it,
yes.
maybe talk about it,
Yeah. Well, I can
however
talk
you
about
share.
it.
Okay.
Um, it is a lip oil. So obviously we know how popular lip oils have been.
Mhm.
Um, and we are really proud of this because it's actually oil. If you
Amazing.
look at a lot of ingredients in the lip oil world, a lot of it, like the oils are at the end, so
Yeah.
the ingredients isn't actually these oils, and it's like so soothing. We added a peppermint oil. So
Mm.
we don't have a lot of scents in our products, but this is one product where we've added that on purpose because I love um, how soothing and calming peppermint oil can
I
be.
love that.
And that's that scent, that it's going to go up into your nostrils and while you're putting it on your lips, and it's going to stay there, and you're going to have that soothing and calming effect while you're wearing the product that is also like super dense in all different kinds of oils that are
Mm.
like very nurturing and healing to the lips. And like protecting and hydrating and doing all the things that a good lip oil should. So we're really excited about these lip oils. We have 3 shades coming
Ooh.
out, like a coral, like a little light brown, and clear. And so it's finally a clear
Amazing.
product for us. Yeah, we've never had a clear product.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
Mhm.
excited. That's
Yeah, I'm really
amazing.
pumped. And yeah, it's been a long time coming because I don't know, I was never like, "Oh, I need to try a lip oil." Never tried any.
Oh,
And
really?
then the team about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, they're like, "We really should work on a lip oil." So we started. And then then I'm diving into like the ingredient research and I'm like, nobody's even actually using oils as the first ingredient. Like, if you're calling this a lip oil, the first ingredient should be an oil, not like a polybutane, which is
Agreed.
just like a synthetic, right? That it's in most glosses. Or a lot of them are just like lip gloss with a couple oils added. So it's not a true lip oil. So
Mhm.
we're really proud that this is like a true lip oil.
I love that. I can't wait to try it. So
Mhm.
that'll be
And
out
it's
the
very, like
24th?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
launches the 24th. Very exciting.
Yay. Is that what you just put on?
Yes, yeah.
Exciting.
Mhm.
I can't wait. Um, my last question for you before we just do some fun rapid fires is what is your favorite part of being a CEO and leader in the beauty industry specifically?
What is my favorite part
I
of
know it's a
being
loaded question, but
yeah, um, you know, I get to, like we built this from nothing, like, when I think about that, so I literally made my job, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I feel proud of that as a mom of a daughter. That like you could show your children and even my son that they could really build anything and do anything even without experience, and that I'm happy that I get to do this, like,
Mm.
because maybe it doesn't always work out, right? And things happen, whether it's the market. I've learned so much about that. Like, it's always like timing and luck of the market and way the industries are going. And it's not necessarily like that anyone has had super savvy, strategic plans that made everything all work out. I think
Mhm.
timing is everything, and the timing when we launched Cheekbone happened to be the good time in history. And I'm really proud of that we've built something where we get to give back to community, and that is, I think, the thing that makes me the proudest. And I think because I'm the leader and this the at the company that I got to make those decisions, that we continue to do that no matter what, or
Mhm.
we don't exist, right? Like, there was no going back. Like, not that we've had an investor that said, "Oh, we can't do that part anymore." That hasn't happened, and hopefully we never will. But those
Yes.
are like the giving is really what makes me so proud.
That's incredible. And as a consumer of your brand, it's something that that makes me feel good about purchasing your products.
Thank you.
So,
And
yeah.
yeah, I should say there's two things. It's the fact too that I came into this industry. We started out one way, which is called like the private white label way, when you're just putting out other people's formulations and products.
Mm.
But we were then able to transform the brand and literally pay attention to like how things are made, and then do that using our indigenous roots and really bring different new products into the world that are really truly sustainable. That we've done this without greenwashing. We're really transparent. Like, we know what we should be working on. We know like these are things, and building out a sustainability report for the last 2 years. Like, we're a small business of 6 people. Like, we're so real about that work that it's not an afterthought either for us, right? So the
Yeah.
giving back portion's not an afterthought, and how we look at making products better for people on the planet, it's not like that's all who we are and what this is supposed to be. And that when I learned coming into this very naive, not knowing anything about the beauty space, I'm like, oh, this is, if this is how everyone puts products in the world, then realizing, well, no, that's, I
Mhm.
guess, the easy way to do it. And then recognizing that there was a market for sustainability when it came
Yeah.
to product development, and really focusing on that, and took a lot of big risks to make that happen. And I think that's another thing that I'm proud of.
That's incredible. And I think something to note too is a few times I've said like a large company, but you're right. You are a small business that's
Yes.
having a large impact, is the way that I should have said, because
Thank you.
yeah, you're doing incredible, incredible things. And like I see you everywhere. So I just assume, oh, you're a large company, but that is so,
Oh, we're
so
teeny
amazing.
tiny in the grand, if you know the beauty industry, which
Yeah,
is led by the giants.
totally.
Yeah, it's we're teeny tiny.
Well, good for you. It's incredible. To end, I'm just going to ask you some fun rapid fire questions if that's okay
Okay.
with you. Favorite movie?
My favorite movie, Life is Beautiful of all time.
Oh,
It was
favorite cheek.
subtitled too, which is really weird for me because I normally
Oh,
hate subtitled movies.
interesting.
Such a good movie. Oh,
Wow, I'm gonna have to
such a good.
watch.
Mhm.
Favorite cheekbone beauty product.
The Unify multi pencils.
Oh, that's what I was talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah. They're like a game changer in your beauty routine.
amazing. Best piece of advice that you've ever received.
Stop worrying about what other people think.
Love. And coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Me too. I knew we were aligned. So, Jen, where can people find you? Where they connect with you after this episode?
Yeah. So I'm Cheekbone Jen on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn as Jenn Harper, and my email is jen@cheekbonebeauty.com.
Amazing. And Jen with two N's.
Two N's. Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing with us. I think this episode was so amazing, and I've learned so much too.
Thank you so much for having me.